You're listening to the Radio Wammo Breakfast, only on Kiwi.
Well, my next guest in the Kiwi studio, whether you know and love Reg from the old bands Mental as Anything or the Manbo brand and designs, or from kind of many other artistic endeavours, he's actually here in the Kiwi studio, which is quite astounding, really. I find quite astounding. Reg, good morning to you.
Good morning.
And of course, Jason Bryant from 1Volt TV as well with us as well. G'day, Jason.
I've already said my good morning.
Yes, you have. Yep. That's indeed you have. So let's concentrate on Reg. Reg, I'm holding your book here. It's boy. I was just saying off air. You could probably injure someone with this. Which
two house bricks.
There's like 2 house bricks and maybe 2 lifetimes contained in here. It's huge. A whole lot of your artwork as well, Reg. A lot of people would know you from the Manbo side of things. When did Manbo start?
Oh, about 84, and I started doing stuff about 86, so a while ago.
You were obviously a keen, or still are a keen surfer.
No, I surfed very briefly when I was about 16 around Mairangi Bay.
Interesting.
And Takapuna, but I was couldn't really swim very well, and I'm a bit of a sissy. The water was too cold, so I gave it up. Quick, smart, and bought an amplifier.
Because most people would associate the Manbo thing with surf and surf culture and that kind of thing.
Totally.
Yeah, so that's interesting that the man behind it isn't such a keen surfer himself.
Yeah, well, there were about 10 artists that sort of made regular contributions. I did a fair bit of it, but they were all surfers, and so was Dare Jennings, the guy that ran the company and owned it. So I was a bit of the odd man out there, really. So
how did that tie-in come along? So did he come along and say, "I like your artwork. Do you want to contribute to this?"
Yeah, I'd actually done a cover for Mental as Anything, a single cover, and it had a couple of chooks running along at the bottom of the picture, and he liked them, and he asked me to redo them as a yardage pattern. So I did. I used to do the odd, graphic art job on the side. So
did your artistic side sort of start out as album cover art?
Oh no, I probably started off more as a painter. I mean, I wanted to be a painter and exhibit in galleries, and I had my first show when I was about 23. But just being in the band, if you're in a band, you have to do a bit of. If you're an artist, you have to do some covers and posters. So it came out of that, really. You grew up on the sleepy old North Shore back in the 60s. Yeah, well, actually, I grew up in Papakura. I spent my childhood in Papakura, but then we lived at Wangapara and Takapuna for a while too. Yeah. Did you make the conscious decision to get out of there as quick as possible? No, actually, my parents left when I was only 17, but there was a bit of a recession at the time. My father's a carpenter, and he was 49, and no one would employ him. They said he was too old, so there was work in Australia, so we went over to Australia. Yeah. The music scene, of course, at the time, it was all very poppy. A lot of it was kind of quite safe, especially when you think about the music scene here in New Zealand. Were you kind of rebelling against that with your music at the time? Oh, not really. I mean, when I was still in New Zealand, me and my friends were all listening to sort of blues and John Mayall and stuff like that, But no, the Mentals were just like we were an art school band. We just wanted to play our favourite covers, like old blues tunes and Yardbirds and Monkeys and the Stones and what have you. And again, that just sort of developed a life of its own. People liked it, so we started writing songs and recording, and off we went. Did you find a crowd, a fan base at that time? Did things develop for you? Oh, for musically, yeah. No, we were sort of just popular playing around East Sydney, and it was the kind of the punk new wave era. It's 1976, 77. So Sydney was really lively then. There was every pub had a band playing in it, and it was that kind of lively sort of period, and we were just part of that, and it grew out of that. Part of a generation of misbegotten youth, I think, it's been described as. That's right. Yeah, people just trying to avoid a real job, as long as they possibly could. Yeah, has that been your lifelong goal and your achievement? I suppose. Yeah, that's my credo. Just to avoid. I'm very lazy, so I worked a fair bit as a builder's labourer and a house painter when I was young, and I sort of thought, well, I really don't want to spend the rest of my life doing that, so had to do something else. So in saying that you're lazy and you kind of rebelled against the norm, are you kind of surprised at the following that you've ended up with? I am actually. I'm surprised and gratified. I mean, it's nice to have people appreciate what you do. And I know a lot of artists and musicians of about my age who are very good, but they're sort of struggling still, so it's not easy to do.
Could you have ever imagined your visual art being almost like walking billboards on T-shirt designs?
No, that was a great opportunity actually, because I just wanted to have shows in galleries, but you don't reach much of an audience. Only a few hundred people might see your show if you're lucky. So getting it out there on T-shirts and posters was great.
What I know is were you responsible for Surfer? Was that you, Surfer?
No, I don't think that's one of mine.
One of the other artists.
That's one of the other guys.
That was the Manbo T-shirt that I owned.
Can you still remember the first time that you saw one of your pieces of art on a shirt and what the feelings were like?
Oh yeah, no, I was very pleased, and often I'd feel like congratulating people because some of it was fairly unpleasant, and it's not the kind of thing I want to wear myself. So if someone else was going to wear it, I feel like saying good on you.
And where did you draw the inspiration for those kind of shirt designs?
Oh, sort of popular culture, really, just the stuff around you, and graphic art of the past, and comics, and anything really. Just often I just get a whole lot of magazines about dogs and muscle men and tribal art or whatever. You just look at it and put things together and make some absurd connections.
It does feel very Australian, like the landscape and perhaps Indigenous Aborigine art also seems to come through in your work. Would you agree with that?
Well, yeah, to some extent, but also a lot of it's based on New Zealand suburban pictures, because I started out as a painter. I started painting pictures of houses that my father had built that we lived in, and around Papakura and South Auckland, and so a lot of it was based on that. So some of the landscapes in the background of the pictures are actually more New Zealand than Australian.
Yeah. How did the hook up with Elvis Costello come about? Because he has produced some of your records.
Yeah, he produced one single for the Mentals. We toured when we were just starting out with Dave Edmonds supporting him, and he was on the same sort of late management and record company sort of group. So and Elvis was out, and we asked him to produce a single, and he was happy to do it, and we got to hang out with him for a while. That was interesting.
Yeah, and did it work out better because he was involved, or?
Oh, I thought he did a good job of it. I know there was a bit of a sort of Martin, the singer whose song it was. He thought the tom-toms were too loud, but Elvis turned him right up and said, stay away, keep your hands off the dial.
Yeah.
Up come the toms.
Yeah. more cowbell. Well,
yeah, that's
in
right.
this case, more toms. Yeah, yeah. You have also contributed artwork to other artists as well, like Crowded House.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. And is that something that you still continue to do?
Oh yeah, if someone asks me to do something, and if it's a band I like, I'll have a crack at it. I did one for John Rotten too, for Pill. I did a best of cover for them.
Yeah. Isn't that amazing? Do you sometimes pinch yourself and go, what a life thus far? How did all this come about? But from a guy who never wanted to conform or be part of the norm. You've turned into an efficient businessman, really.
Well, I'm not actually a very good businessman at all, because I never sort of had anything to do with running Manbo. I was always just a freelance artist, and same thing musically, really. But no, I've been very lucky. I mean, this is the thing. Sometimes, having a bit of talent kind of helps, and working reasonably hard helps. But
a lot of it's passion. Passion comes into that.
Yeah. You've got to be sort of devoted to what you do, but running into the right people at the right time is also incredibly important.
Mm. And tell me about the relationship with Marie Waldron, who has actually put together the book called The Mind and Times of Reg Mombassa.
Yeah, well, I didn't know Murray before he approached me about doing the book, but apparently he was born in the same hospital in Auckland in the same year, and he's also a painter, and he's worked with rock bands as a roadie as well, so we have quite a lot in common.
And obviously he has been a fan for years. Is that how? And then he got in touch and said, "Oh, look, we need to make your story." Yeah,
no, he knew about my work and that, but his agent actually suggested it to him. She was a fan too, and had bought a couple of pictures, so he approached me about doing it. And I was a bit reluctant about the biography part, but I was keen on doing a picture book, so they talked me into the biography and having to tell a few secrets and embarrassing things, etc.
How long has that taken to get the story out? How long did that take with?
But we've been working on it for about 2 years or so.
Yeah. Yeah. Was it a few late nights, a few whiskies?
No, it was mainly lunchtime. He would come round, because Murray's a journalist and he used to work the late shift, so he would come at lunchtime every day, and we'd have a pie and a cup of tea, and I'd just sort of mumble into his tape recorder.
Yeah.
We did that for weeks, and he talked to a lot of other people as well.
Yeah.
Old friends.
The whole story is contained within the book, The Mind and Times of Reg Mombassa. Thanks so much, Reg, for coming on in. Lovely to see you and lovely to meet you.
Oh, no worries. Thanks for having us on your show.
And we're going to play something actually from one of your CDs. This is called Antisocial Tendencies. And it's taken from a collaboration